The Miller family lived in a quiet, tree-lined suburb. They felt safe there. Their days were filled with school-runs, soccer practice, and weekend barbecues. They believed serious diseases like measles were a thing of the past. These were stories from their grandparents' time, not a modern threat. Sarah and Tom Miller had two children, 8-year-old Leo and 6-year-old Mia. They followed their pediatrician's advice and kept their children's vaccinations up to date. They thought they had done everything right. They had built a protective wall around their family, one they believed was unshakable. Life was predictable, and honestly, that was a comfort. But one Tuesday morning, that comfort shattered. An email arrived from Leo's elementary school. It was an urgent public health notification. A confirmed case of measles had been identified in a third-grade classroom. The email advised parents to check their children's immunization records and watch for symptoms. Sarah's heart pounded as she read the words, "Measles. Here, in their town?" It seemed impossible. She immediately looked at her son, who was happily eating his cereal, and a wave of fear washed over her. The threat was no longer a distant headline, it was in her son's school, just a few classrooms away from him. The news spread through the community like wildfire. Phone calls and text messages flew between parents. The neighborhood chat groups, usually filled with talk of lost pets and block parties, were now flooded with panicked questions. Was it just one case? Who was the child? Were their children exposed? The sense of calm that had once defined their community was replaced by a palpable anxiety. Sarah found herself rereading the school's email over and over as if the words might change. She felt a growing sense of helplessness, realizing that despite all her precautions, a dangerous virus had found its way into their safe, predictable world. That evening, the Miller household was tense. Leo seemed fine, but every cough or sneeze from him or Mia sent a jolt of alarm through Sarah and Tom. They checked their children's immunization cards, confirming the 2 MMR doses were there, but the fear lingered. They learned that measles was so contagious that it could hang in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person had left the room. The school hallways, the cafeteria, the library, all were now potential zones of infection. The invisible threat felt immense, and the protective wall they had so much faith in suddenly seemed fragile and full of holes. Many people think of measles as a simple childhood illness. They might remember it as just a fever and some spots, but measles is much more serious than that. It is a highly contagious respiratory infection caused by a virus. The first signs often look like a common cold: a high fever, a cough, a runny nose, and red, watery eyes. These symptoms can be easily dismissed, but a few days later the telltale rash appears. It starts as flat red spots on the face at the hairline, and then spreads down to the rest of the body. For a parent, seeing that rash can be terrifying. The danger of measles lies not just in the rash and fever, but in its potential for severe complications. The virus weakens the immune system, making the body vulnerable to other serious infections. About 1 in 5 unvaccinated people in the United States who get measles is hospitalized. 1 out of every 1,000 people with measles will develop brain swelling, which can lead to permanent brain damage. And for every 1,000 children who get measles, 1 or 2 will die from it. These are not just statistics. They represent real children and real families whose lives are changed forever by a preventable disease. Understanding how measles spreads is key to understanding its threat. The virus lives in the nose and throat mucus of an infected person. It can spread to others through coughing and sneezing. The measles virus is so contagious that if one person has it, up to 90% of the people close to that person who are not immune will also become infected. The virus can remain infectious in the air and on surfaces for up to 2 hours. This means you can catch measles just by being in a room where an infected person was, even after they have left. This incredible level of contagion is why outbreaks can happen so quickly. The illness also has a cruel trick up its sleeve called immune amnesia. Research has shown that the measles virus can wipe out the immune system's memory of other germs it has fought off before. This means a child who recovers from measles is left more vulnerable to other dangerous infections, like pneumonia and bronchitis, for months or even years afterward. So surviving measles is not the end of the story. The virus leaves a lasting impact, resetting the body's defenses and forcing the immune system to relearn how to protect itself from scratch. It is a profound and dangerous setback for a child's health. As news of the measles case spread, the community's reaction was swift and chaotic. Parents who had once shared friendly waves at school drop-off now looked at each other with suspicion. The central question on everyone's mind was, is your child vaccinated? The outbreak created an invisible line in the sand, dividing families based on their immunization status. The local health department's phone lines were jammed with calls from worried parents. Pharmacies reported a sudden surge in requests for the MMR vaccine. The calm, orderly rhythm of the town had been completely disrupted by fear. The situation escalated quickly. Within a week, 2 more cases were confirmed at the same school. The school district, following public health guidelines, made a difficult decision. They announced that all unvaccinated students must stay home for 21 days to prevent further spread. This sent a shockwave through the community. Working parents scrambled to find last-minute childcare. The empty desks in classrooms were a stark visual reminder of the outbreak's impact. Playgrounds grew quiet, and birthday parties were canceled. The simple joys of childhood were put on hold as the community hunkered down, trying to contain the invisible enemy. Online, the panic took on a life of its own. Social media platforms became a battleground of fear, anger, and conflicting information. Frightened parents shared articles, memes, and personal anecdotes, many of which were not fact-checked. Rumors spread that the outbreak was larger than officials were admitting. Some posts blamed specific families, leading to online harassment and real-world tension. The digital echo chamber amplified the community's anxiety, making it difficult for people to separate credible health advice from sensationalized claims. The information overload was overwhelming, leaving many families feeling more confused and scared than ever before. The atmosphere in town grew heavy. A trip to the grocery store became a source of anxiety. A child's cough in the checkout line would cause heads to turn. Parents clutched their children's hands a little tighter, eyeing strangers with a new sense of distrust. The outbreak didn't just make people sick, it frayed the social fabric of the community. It eroded the trust neighbors had in one another and replaced a sense of shared responsibility with one of individual fear. The virus was not just a medical problem, it had become a social one, testing the bonds that held the community together. For many parents, the outbreak brought on a profound sense of betrayal. They had been told by online influencers, certain blogs, and voices in their social circles that measles was a mild disease. They had heard that vaccines were unnecessary or worse, that they were dangerous. This information, often presented with emotional appeals and seemingly convincing personal stories, had led some to delay or refuse vaccination for their children. Now faced with a real outbreak, they felt misled and vulnerable. The promises of safety from alternative sources crumbled in the face of a genuine public health crisis. This feeling of betrayal was complicated. Some parents felt betrayed by the very people they had trusted. They had joined online groups that offered a sense of community and support, only to find that the advice they received had put their children at risk. Others felt betrayed by the medical establishment, believing the misinformation that claimed doctors were hiding the truth about vaccines. This created a painful dilemma. Who could they trust now? The fear of the disease was compounded by the fear of making the wrong choice, a choice that could have life or death consequences for their child. The clash between myth and fact was stark. Anti-vaccine narratives often claim that the MMR vaccine causes autism, a theory that has been thoroughly and repeatedly debunked by dozens of major scientific studies around the world. Misinformation spreads the idea that natural immunity from getting the disease is better, ignoring the serious risks of brain damage, pneumonia, and death that come with a measles infection. In contrast, medical experts present the clear facts. The MMR vaccine is safe and highly effective. 2 doses are about 97% effective at preventing measles. The risks associated with the vaccine are extremely small compared to the risks of the disease itself. The danger of this misinformation became painfully clear. It convinced some families to opt out of a proven, life-saving measure, leaving not only their own children unprotected but also contributing to cracks in the community's herd immunity. This community protection is vital for those who cannot be vaccinated, such as infants too young for the shot, or people with compromised immune systems. When vaccination rates drop, the virus finds an easy path to spread, putting the most vulnerable members of society in grave danger. The betrayal, ultimately, was a betrayal of the social contract to protect one another. In the midst of the fear and confusion, a positive shift began to emerge. The outbreak served as a powerful, real-world lesson. Families started turning away from anonymous online sources and toward trusted medical professionals. Doctors' offices held informational sessions, patiently answering questions and explaining the science behind vaccines. The local health department created a clear, easy-to-understand web page with facts about measles and vaccination clinics. People began to realize that the most effective way to fight their fear was with credible information and proactive steps to protect their loved ones. The solution to measles is remarkably simple and effective: vaccination. The MMR vaccine works by introducing a weakened, harmless version of the virus to the body. This allows the immune system to learn how to recognize and fight off the real measles virus without ever having to experience the actual illness. It builds a strong defense, creating a memory that protects the body for life. Families like the Millers, who had already vaccinated their children, felt a sense of relief amidst the chaos, knowing they had given their kids the best possible shield against the disease. For those who were unvaccinated, clinics offered a path to safety. Protecting a family starts with a few simple actions. First, check your family's immunization records. Make sure everyone, including adults, is up to date on their MMR vaccine. Adults born before 1957 are generally considered immune, but others may need a booster. Second, talk to your doctor. They are the most reliable source of information and can address any personal concerns you might have. Finally, practice good hygiene, like frequent hand washing, which can help prevent the spread of many germs. These proactive measures empower families, turning feelings of helplessness into a sense of control over their health and safety. Ultimately, the measles outbreak taught the community a vital lesson. While a virus can spread fear and division, a shared commitment to health can bring people together. Protecting yourself and your family through vaccination is also an act of community service. It helps build a wall of immunity that shields infants, cancer patients, and others who are too vulnerable to be vaccinated. The hopeful message is that we are not powerless. By trusting science, getting vaccinated, and looking out for one another, we can turn the tide against preventable diseases. We can choose to build a healthier, safer future for our children together.